Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Executive Vice President and Head of Analytics of EXL, Vivek Jetley.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on this live stream event. We must have done something right with the topic because we are delighted to announce a massive turnout for our event today. But what I wanted to do was just tell you a little bit about what we are going to be doing as you spend the next hour with us. So first of all, we are all delighted to announce the launch of EXL's Generative AI platform. And what we plan to do today is we'll have Rohit Kapoor, our Vice Chairman and CEO, who's going to talk to you a little bit about our point of view and how the platform helps our client. We've got Jen Hamel, who's going to join us from IDC, and she's going to talk about some research that she's done in the area of what clients are thinking about for AI use cases. And then we've got Anita Mann, Andy Logani, and myself who will talk to you and show you a little bit about the use cases that we've already built into EXL's Generative AI platform and talk a little bit more about our approach. Now, I wanted to spend just a couple of seconds on talking about how we plan to run the event today. So we'd love for this event to be as interactive as possible. We've got a couple of different ways for you to interact with us. We've got a live Twitter feed going, and there's a chat already started. You can join that at EXL_service on Twitter, and we'd love to hear your comments, your feedback, your questions over there. Alternatively, throughout the presentation, you're going to see a QR code on the bottom right of your screen. Just scan the QR code, ask us a question, and we'll take that during our conversation. Now, without much further ado, I'll hand it over to our Vice Chairman and CEO, Rohit Kapoor. Rohit.
Thanks, Vivek, and good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today at EXL's live stream for generative AI. There could not be a more fascinating topic to have this live stream on. And it's fascinating because generative AI possesses the power and potential which is very, very significant. It can disrupt things, it can create things, it can generate massive amounts of productivity and efficiency and have a huge benefit for all of us. And at the same time, it's got a huge amount of threat and risk associated with it. If we use it wrongly, we could end up polluting the entire environment with generative AI pollution. If we use it incorrectly, we could come up with incorrect artifacts that are going to severely impact the consequences of what we are putting out there. And many people are now calling this the threat as much as it being existential, and therefore it's something which we have to be very, very careful of. So, the best way for us to try and understand this, how to use it, and how to apply it is actually to jump into some use cases that we're going to share with you today so that you can see for yourselves as to how generative AI can be used and be used in a responsible way. We've also created a generative AI platform at EXL that we'd like to share with you today because each one of these use cases has been built leveraging this generative AI platform at EXL. So let's get started. So the first thing is the potential of using generative AI is tremendous. The adoption of this has to be done in a very, very careful way. We're going to have millions of use cases that are going to be developed, but only a few of them are going to be powerful, only a few of them are going to have business impact, and only a few of them can be applied at scale. And therefore, being able to differentiate between these two is going to be really, really important. The potential of using generative AI is obviously tremendous, but doing it in a disciplined manner is critical for the long-term success of the adoption of generative AI. And finally, we have to be responsible about how we use generative AI. EXL has already put out its viewpoint on how we ourselves can take on this responsibility. while governments might come up with regulations on how generative AI is to be used, at EXL we've said there are two very simple guidelines that we've established that we want to adopt. Number one, we only want to use generative AI on closed data loops. What that means is we want to train the AI model only on data that has been verified, has been accepted, and that can be used by us and by our clients for coming up with that business outcome. And the second part of it is we always want to have the human in the loop. And that is really, really critical and important for us. Now let's talk a little bit about EXL's generative AI platform. As you all know, the first place to start is data. Generative AI can be very powerful if you train it on the right data. But here are two important statistics. Only 4% of all the data that's available on the internet is indexed. And therefore, only a limited amount of data can be used for training generative AI. And the second part is, and as our clients, you all know this, only 2% of all data is ever used to make a business decision. So think about that. So the very first thing is, how do we create the right kind of data structures? How do we cleanse the data? How do we make sure that that data is available for training our generative AI models and applying that into a business use case? And our generative AI platform has got a very strong component built in around the use of data. The second piece is around us having created a workbench which really allows us to play with, in a modular approach, with different components of this platform, with different data sets, with different models that are already pre-created, and do it in a sandbox so that we maintain the security and the compliance of the data set. One of the biggest issues and challenges in terms of using generative AI that we hear constantly from our clients is that they don't want to have their data get compromised and go into the external world so that it can be misused. We have built very strong safeguards and mechanisms, and this AI workbench allows us to play in a sandbox that is very well protected. We've got adequate amount of security and compliance tools built in that make sure that we can maintain the integrity of the data and that we don't have commingling of data sets taking place, so that the external data is kept separate and the internal data is used separately as well. Finally, what's really important in today's world is speed. And in order to be able to develop a new use case, you've got to do it in a very, very quick fashion. The end consumer expects hyper-personalization, expects the service to be customized to their needs, and expects it to be delivered in real time. What we have done is we've created a modular approach in our generative AI platform that will allow us to be able to pick and choose some of these components and very quickly assemble a use case so that it can be put out into a live production environment very, very quickly. And that allows us to be able to deploy this at scale and at speed. And finally, in our platform, we always have human in the loop. So there's always adult human supervision in terms of whatever content we are putting out and whatever the model outputs that are coming out. This whole thing that we've put together, which is modular, safe, secure, and has pre-built components in it for faster access, is what we are calling as EXL's generative AI platform. It is very, very powerful, and you'll see this in some of the use cases that we are going to share with you today. Now, going forward, many of you have come to us and said that you are excited about using this and developing a use case for yourselves in your specific client environments and deploying this very, very quickly. Well, I'm here to tell you today that EXL is ready for partnering with you as our clients and prospects and developing these at speed and at scale. We have 1,500 trained AI scientists at EXL. We believe this is one of the largest AI trained population that exists, and we can have these people work on your use cases very, very quickly. We already have 50 plus AI models that are embedded in terms of some of the use cases that have been developed. And we've also created 60 new use cases that are leveraging generative AI. We're going to share a few of these with you today, but there are several more that we are creating every day, every week, and every month. And therefore, we encourage you to be able to engage with us, and we can deploy these at your operations very, very quickly. So we are excited about partnering with you. There is a huge opportunity in terms of leveraging generative AI that we would like to partner with you on and take to the world. And we look forward to a very, very mutually rewarding relationship with you. Thank you so much for this, and let's jump into talking about some of the use cases and the framework associated with generative AI. Let me pass it on back to Vivek to take you forward from here.
Thank you, Rohit, for kicking this event off, and thank you for your remarks. It gives me a great pleasure right now to introduce Jennifer Hamel. Jen is a research director for IDC's Worldwide Services team. She's responsible for their coverage on analytics and intelligent automation services and the research for that. And as part of her research, she covers the entire life cycle of services related to the adoption of analytics and automation technologies, including information and data management, how they use visualization tools, BI, and all the advanced analytics, big data, and AI intelligence services that actually factor in. Now, Jen's been doing some research very recently on how organizations and large companies plan to use AI and what they are doing in terms of creating their plan for how do they want to adopt it. And we had the opportunity of interviewing Jen to talk about her research later, and we'll just play some of that for you. So over to Jen.
Thank you, and hello everyone. I'm very happy to be part of this virtual event, and I wish I could be there in person with the EXL team today. I first want to thank EXL for inviting me to share a bit of my new research on generative AI from the professional services perspective. I've been researching the AI services market for several years, but of course, now is a particularly exciting time. In my view, we're at a turning point in the AI services industry. In the next few minutes, I'll take you through some data from 2 surveys that IDC conducted within the last 3 months. Both surveys focused on organizations that work with services providers such as EXL to help them incorporate AI into their enterprise intelligence strategies. So there's 3 main points that I want you to take away from the research that I'm about to share. 1, generative AI is top of mind for most of the organizations that we've surveyed. 2, decision makers are exploring a variety of use cases for generative AI technologies in their businesses. And 3, services providers are key trusted advisors, helping enterprises to realize business value from their AI investments. Without further ado, let's get started. Let's start with the first point. Where are organizations with generative AI adoption today? In a recent IDC survey, we asked more than 600 worldwide buyers of enterprise intelligence services about their plans to adopt generative AI capabilities. The survey data showed that nearly 70% of these organizations are actively considering or working on use cases for generative AI in their businesses. The rest of the respondents either said they had no plans to adopt, or they were aware of the hype but waiting to see what others do before taking the leap. When OpenAI's ChatGPT chatbot launched back in November, it gave lots of people the opportunity to interact with free web-based generative AI tools to see what they could do. Of course, there were a few tools available before this, such as DALL-E, but ChatGPT was the big one. For the survey, I wanted to delineate between the true early adopters, those that were already working on generative AI use cases before ChatGPT came around, and organizations whose efforts really started in earnest within the last 6 months. As we can see, 16% of respondents said they had started adopting earlier, while more than a quarter said they began active use case development after the public launch of ChatGPT. and another 28% expect to start working on generative AI use cases in the next 12 months. So clearly there are a lot of organizations that are feeling inspired or perhaps pressured to move faster to get up to speed with generative AI. But it's important to note, as that segment of the early adopters suggests, while generative AI seems to have burst onto the scene only recently, in recent months, many AI services providers have been experimenting with this technology for much longer, both internally and with their clients. So now let's move to the second point. What are organizations looking to do with generative AI? Our survey asked those respondents who indicated they had some awareness or more concrete plans for generative AI adoption about the types of use cases that they consider most important for their businesses. Other IDC research around generative AI technology has identified 5 broad categories of enterprise applications, including knowledge management, conversational applications, sales and marketing applications, code generation, and design. So I structured this survey question to gauge interest across these 3 categories, or across these 5 categories among enterprise intelligence services buyers. I asked respondents to rank their top 3 generative AI use cases in order of importance to their business. But just to keep the chart simple for today's discussion, for each use case category, I'm just showing the percentage of worldwide respondents that ranked it as one of their top 3. Each of the 5 use case categories had more than half of respondents attaching some level of importance to it, which shows the broad utility of generative AI capabilities to meet business needs. So the most popular type of generative AI use case among the enterprise intelligence services buyers that we surveyed was knowledge management. Enterprise content management is often a very labor-intensive exercise, and so the ability to read and synthesize millions of insights using natural language is extremely compelling for organizations across most industries. Code generation was a close second overall, and when I'm looking at how respondents ranked use case types within their top 3, this one actually had the highest percentage, 29% of respondents, that ranked it as their number 1 most important use case. Software developers are seeing the potential for greater efficiency and productivity from the assistance of AI tools that can identify bugs, fix mistakes in code, as well as write code from natural language prompts. Conversational applications were a bit further down the priority list overall, but among respondents who are aware of generative AI but were waiting to see what others do with it, 75% of those ranked it among their top 3 use cases. So this suggests that chatbots actually may be a great entry point for more hesitant organizations to get their feet wet with generative AI before moving on to other use cases. So finally, let's cover the third point. How do services providers help organizations be successful with their generative AI endeavors? I recently completed an assessment of worldwide AI services providers. As part of that research, I collected feedback from more than 100 customers on what they saw as the most critical factors that made their AI services engagement successful. The survey found that the ability for a services provider to achieve their customers' desired business outcomes is the most critical success factor. But other attributes in the top 5 include creating high-quality data sets and pipelines for AI model training, high-quality skills and knowledge around AI, technical expertise, and providing security and governance for AI systems, which of course is an extremely important concern when it comes to deploying generative AI at scale. But what AI services partners offer goes far beyond just deploying AI technology. In today's economic climate, organizations more than ever need to connect their innovation around AI solutions to tangible business outcomes. Services providers work with their customers to discover and prioritize AI use cases, define KPIs for measuring their business value, and create a strong foundation for continued innovation of AI use cases across the business. Several of the customers that I interviewed told me it was their services providers' domain knowledge and experience working with many different customers that helped them to accelerate the process of identifying and developing impactful AI use cases for their business. So there's a lot more I would love to share on this topic, and I'd be happy to take any questions during the Q&A portion of the session. But for now, I'll pass it back to the EXL team to keep the event rolling. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Jen for sharing those insights. And hello, everyone. I'm Anita Mann. I lead the healthcare business at EXL, supporting payers, providers, PBMs, and others. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for joining us. Now we're shifting into the use cases and demos. So first, I'll cover some highlights of how important generative AI will be for our healthcare clients, and then show a demo of one way it is helping their healthcare consumers. The industry has been working on improving healthcare with advanced analytics and AI for a very long time. Progress has been accelerating rapidly recently, with one example being that the FDA has now cleared over 500 AI algorithms for clinical use. Generative AI is going to take this data-led healthcare innovation to the next level. We see opportunities everywhere. If you just think about it from the perspective of an individual, what are people looking for? They want healthcare to be easier, to be just as straightforward, smart, and convenient as every other aspect of their lives. And what do they really need? They need to understand their benefits, understand their insurance options, know when and where to seek care, help with getting their appointments, getting their medical information where it needs to be, knowing what to expect, and having confidence that the path you're on is really right for you. Generative AI is going to help with all of that and a whole lot more. We are going to be using it to drive efficiencies, improve quality, use resources better, and provide the best possible personalized care. We also expect big improvements in clinical and research applications like early disease detection, drug discovery, and remote patient management. It is important to note that we have to do this work taking great care to ensure the highest compliance with security and privacy requirements, HIPAA and high trust, and ensuring data integrity and data interoperability. We'll ensure that data sets are established with diverse, representative, and inclusive data, and identify and mitigate potential biases in order to avoid perpetuating the existing biases in healthcare delivery. Now moving on to a use case. One area where we've done some work is in helping members to understand and use their healthcare benefits. This is an ongoing challenge in the industry. Half of the population has inadequate health insurance literacy and low confidence in using their benefits to access care. And the health benefits documents, they're complex, full of tables, nuanced terminology, very difficult to parse and understand. So this first demo helps members get answers to their benefits questions. What you're going to see is an interactive knowledge base that was created ingesting a benefits description into the LLM using our new generative AI platform. This works very well to support a consistent experience across channels. It could be behind an app, IVR, a web chat, a thread, a text thread. But for now, let's take a look at what it looks like when a member accesses it through chat. So imagine someone has a surgery coming up. They don't know what to expect. They've got questions. After being authenticated to the plan, first the member asks about their deductible. And the AI replies with a complete answer, giving it both individual and family amounts. Then with the context from that prior interaction of having just asked about their deductible, when the next question simply says, what if I have a hospital stay? The AI can determine that that question is really about the potential financial exposure from the hospital stay and provides a helpful and complete answer to that inquiry. Now, thinking about maybe post-surgery pain management, the member asks about coverage, something different for acupuncture. Doesn't get the spelling right. It is a hard word to spell. But the AI gets it right and answers the question as well as offering some advice. And then continuing that question about coverage, the AI knows how to interpret the next question from the member. And when the member says, what about long-term care? The AI knows they're asking about whether or not long-term care is covered and provides the answer, no, because long-term care is identified as a service that is not typically covered by this plan. So you can quickly see the value of this, quick answers to health benefits questions in an easy, free-flowing style, any time of day or night, scaling up and down, improving satisfaction and engagement, and streamlining operations. So it also allows for a more rewarding work experience for the member services agents, as the easier questions are offloaded to the AI and they spend more of their time supporting members who are experiencing more complex illnesses and events. One important note on the accuracy: when members reach out to a health plan like this, they're typically experiencing some kind of a healthcare need. And so it's critical that we're getting them the answers that they seek. A use of generative AI like this, providing answers direct to consumers, is going to require ongoing human-in-the-loop validation done with an expert understanding of the domain and the operations, and a validation that it's achieving intended end outcomes. So even then, there may be a risk that the AI could respond inappropriately, but the question is not really whether generative AI will ever get an answer wrong, but can we tune the model such that it's doing as well or better than our member services agents? And as you can imagine, generative AI can support those agents too. So moving on now to some insurance and utility industry demos, including how generative AI can be used to support agents. Here is our Chief Digital Officer, Andy Lagani.
Thank you, Anita. Hello, everyone. Coming up next is a use case in insurance. It's called Insurance Underwriting Assistant. What you're going to essentially see is how leveraging generative AI platform, carriers and underwriters are able to significantly improve the risk selection and therefore improve the profitability of the overall portfolio. Actually, the stack that you're going to see and witness is exactly the same as Anita demonstrated. That's done with a purpose. So you can see that the generative AI platform can take multiple use cases. We will be getting into a demonstration shortly, but one thing I must tell you, what really helped us accelerate this use case is a couple of things. Number one, our deep understanding of the underwriting process. And number two, intricate knowledge of underlying data flows. Those were the two things that really helped us. In the next 4 minutes, I'll walk you through a quick demonstrations, and then in the end, I'll come back and summarize some of the key takeaways. So let's start with the demonstration now. As I said, underwriters can generate insights and recommendations from historical submissions or artifacts like loss runs, surveys, and inspection reports. An underwriter receives 100 such applications that you're now seeing on your screen, and in the wholesale market, thousands of these. Additionally, these submissions and artifacts can be stored in multiple systems. But here is the power. The underlying large language models trained on prior submissions and other artifacts analyze, extract details which otherwise would require extensive research in multiple systems. Now let's upload a few applications and other artifacts on the platform. In the backend, mathematical transformations are applied to encode the text into vectors that are used by large language models. Okay, now let's do some fun. Let's ask some questions. Did we receive a submission from Brightwater Towers condominium in the past? The model answers yes. Not only that, for an underwriting audit trail, it tells us the precise year and shows the page number where it was able to locate the information. For example, look here on page number 110, we can see a date corresponding to the year, and then on page number 94, we can see that the application was for the year 2020. Okay, that's simple. Let's look at something more complicated. Okay, what has changed since the last submission? Now look at the response. Platform provides easy to interpret bullets. Also note how it's so concise and crisp. It interacts with us in a human-like way. But let me share something else with you. I actually only asked half the question, what has changed? But the model can remember the context from the previous chat and interacts with me in continuation. So it has that intelligence. Let's make it harder. Why was the previous submission declined? Again, observe the newest answers. It generates a summary of response and all the reasons for declination. I'm actually now going to upload some more declination documents into the platform for the underwriter assistant to provide a portfolio view, and then let's look at some key trends and insights and ask some more questions. Let's upload it. Okay, question number 1. What are the top reasons for declinations last month? The underwriter assistance comes up very crisp answer. 5 out of 8 were declined since the industry classes are outside the underwriting guidelines. Then we'll take the next question. Okay, for which industry classes was it declined? Then it generates the percentage distribution by industry classes in that case, which really helps the underwriter to pin down specific issues. Now I'm going to take a little more tough question, which is nuanced, and it says, how many habitational submissions were declined by the team? Now you can notice the factual summary being generated by the model, which goes beyond simple classification. But here is the big power. This is the output generated now. So it's not only classification, it's not just summarization. You are actually seeing an actual summary which an underwriter can use. Now, that was a 4 minutes demo. I know we showed you a lot. Here is what I'd like to do now. Even if you don't remember anything about that demo, I want you to remember these 3 things. Number 1, it is not your typical chatbot. It's intelligent, it extracts, it summarizes, it creates output that an underwriter can use to really create an impact, improve the ratios, improve the outcomes, and drive the profitability. Number 2, in some of our initial samples, we are witnessing 58 minutes average length time going down to 15 minutes, which is 60 or even higher percentage saving that the underwriters can get. Last but not the least, just imagine the power of that data in those hundreds and thousands of applications that are lying there and have not been harnessed, which today EXL's generative AI platform can help. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me now take on another use case in the utility context, and this is actually in the area of customer experience. Something Jen shared earlier. Customer experience area is absolutely ripe for transformation. It creates friction for our customers. It creates friction for our associate customer service agents who are on the calls. Let us make it real for you today. What we're going to demonstrate today is Smart Agent Assist. Smart Agent Assist is hosted on EXL's generative AI platform. What you're going to see is the features that it will use, the large language models that it is leveraging to really make the experience better for the employee as well as the end customers. For the next 6 minutes, what we are going to do is actually show you a brief video and then play a mock call, which is simulated for a utility client in the UK. In the end, I'll come back and share what you saw and then what are the insights. Can we please go to the demo now?
In an increasingly digital world, customers continue to have poor experience while engaging with customer service teams due to inability to find quick resolution, higher repetitions on the call, long average handling times. At the same time, agents handling the call continue to face similar issues, like understanding customer accents, difficulty of locating right information, updating various systems manually. Introducing EXL's generative AI, led Smart Agent Assist solution, which helps transform customer and employee experience. Smart Agent Assist can assist with the intent recognition during the call, proactively provide procedural guidance to the agent handling the call, extract the most relevant information, provides real-time nudges and feedback to the agent, summarizes the call, leveraging large language models to improve efficiency and effectiveness of the call. For the purpose of this demo, you will be listening into a mock call and how Smart Agent platform is powered by Generative AI works.
Hi, you've been connected to Utility Collections team. My name is Jessica, and I'll be happy to assist you today. May I have your account number, please?
1234567
All right, and could you just confirm your full name and date of birth?
Kate Harding, 1st of June, 1990.
Perfect. And how about your full address?
101 Leslie Street, AD01QA.
All right, and lastly, please confirm if your email address is still kate7499926@gmail.com.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I do see there's an outstanding balance of £1,011 and 11 pence. Are you calling to make a payment today?
Unfortunately, I have no income whatsoever at the moment. I'm actually due to give birth on Friday, and my husband lost his job. I'm obviously not working because I'm about to give birth, so I'm just in a very difficult position right now.
Congratulations on your pregnancy, and I'm really sorry to hear about your financial situation, Ms. Harding. Let's see how we can best help you today. Will an alternate payment plan or maybe a switch to pay-as-you-go meter work for you?
Sorry, that won't work either since my husband has put out a couple of applications, but he hasn't heard back. And if there's no gas and electricity in my house, it will be very tough to care for my newborn.
Oh, I see. Well, given your circumstances, I recommend that you contact Step Change for assistance.
Okay, I'll do that.
I can send you an email regarding Step Change and a few other organizations that might be able to help here. As for process, I'll put your account on a 30-day temporary hold with the hopes that your financial situation will improve.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And since you're expecting a child, I recommend that we register you for Priority Services Register, or PSR. Essentially, you would be prioritized to get power back first in the event of power failure, and there are a few other benefits too. Also, there's no extra charge for PSR.
Oh, okay, thank you. That will be really helpful.
All right, I'm just going to add you. There's also a short script that I need to read to you. While the Priority Service Register contains your personal information, we assure you that anything you provide here will be treated in the strictest confidence. By submitting this form, you consent to utility suppliers storing this information to allow us to support you. There are additional benefits associated with sharing this information with relevant third parties. However, we require your permission to share your details before we would do this. This is to ensure that they are able to support you correctly and your details will not be used for any marketing purposes. Please indicate whether you consent to your details being shared with the relevant parties.
Okay, yes, that's fine.
All right. So, Ms. Harding, I'm just going to recap our discussion. We have put your account on temporary hold, and I just sent you an email on Step Change and a few other organizations that can help. We have added you to PSR as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of course, and thank you for your call, Ms. Harding. Once again, congratulations, and we hope that your financial situation improves.
Thank you so much. Bye.
I sincerely hope that you found this call very fascinating. Don't we owe this to our customers? Don't we owe this to our employees? To really create a frictionless experience, somebody is new on the call, can get the nudges, can get the guidance, customer is getting the right information. I think we owe this to our customers. I think you actually saw a lot during the call. What I'm going to do next is actually two things. Number one, I just want to play back 4 or 5 areas where you saw generative AI and more specifically some large language models that we've put to use to make it real. And number 2, I'm actually going to summarize, so what? Why are we doing this? What do you get in the end? And what's the real benefit? So that's up next. I'm actually going to use a couple of slides and share the what and the so what. All right. Number 1, what you saw in that mock call and in that generative AI platform 1 was a real-time transcription with the ability to extract customer details, automated intent detection, and identity verification using large language models. Number 2, real-time vulnerability identification, assessment of the sentiment, and this is where we were using Distilbert. This feature actually constantly improves using reinforcement learning based on the agent feedback. Number 3, this is my favorite, proactive guidance to the agent and real-time nudge. Please offer this. Please say this to the customer. Read this script so that you're taking care of regulations, you're taking care of the customers. Number 4, generative AI-powered Agent Wiki. If you noticed on the call, there was a part where the customer associate rep wasn't absolutely clear about, okay, how do I offer PSR? What are the specifics around it? They typed in the search, it scanned the process knowledge, the guidance repository, and provided the answers. And this also includes the reference documents. And what we are using here is actually semantic search, which is actually powered by GPT 3.5, LangChain, or Chroma. Last but not the least, this is where a 15 to 20% of your call time can get wasted today. It's actually taking the entire context, everything that was discussed, and the nuances, and everything is automated, summarized in the call in the end. So that's what you saw. Now, what we've also done is running these samples on almost, or running this model on almost 150 different call types. Here are some of the initial findings that we would like to share with you. What we are going to do is illustrate the impact of generative AI on customer experience and efficiency, on the standard call flow, as well as with generative AI, what's the new timelines for the specific aspect of the call. Number 1 on greetings, we actually have kept the greetings with no change because several of our customers want to keep that human-led experience and they do not want to change. So the 10 seconds, let's say, remained as 10 seconds. If you notice during the authentication and the compliance, there is the avoidance of the phonetics and repetitions, which is a big saving. What is really happening here is generative AI is allowing the agent to deal with difficult accents, multiple language seamlessly because of that transcription that's happening real time. Next is intent discovery. This is another area which actually is much more effective with generative AI when you compare it with the previous versions of AI. By training it on enterprise proprietary contact center data with very specific scenarios, the intent recognition feature can significantly improve. And the benefit here is both the efficiency and customer experience. Next, I think this is where the most amount of time saving happens. And quite frankly, this is where you actually end up giving the right advice to the customer. through the nudges, through the feedback, and the procedure guidelines. And this is where I think the large language models are being most effectively used during the call, leveraging the platform. System updates, again, you saw it's all automated, it's validated, so you don't have to check 10 things. The generative AI will take care of it. Last but not the least, you also saw the wrap-up and after-call work gets a significant improvement. So on a cumulative time basis, you're actually seeing anywhere between 40 to 50% savings. But not only that, here is the biggest power that you get. It's improvement in CSAT, it's improvement in first call resolution, and it is really improvement in the defect rate. Those are two use cases I want to share with you. I'll request Vivek to come and share one more exciting use case with the audience here. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And actually, that last page there with the time comparison really puts it into perspective, the transformative power of what we've got going with generative AI and with EXL's platform. Now, just a quick note for housekeeping, we've got a lovely dialogue going on our Twitter space. If you want to join that, that's at EXL_service. And we've got a bunch of questions that are coming up on that little tag that you can click on. So keep your questions coming as well. We'd love to be able to address some of those questions as we go on. Now, what I wanted to do was end with one last demo, which is one of the most exciting use cases that's possible with generative AI. It also happens to be one of the top use cases that showed up in Jennifer Hamel's research. And it's using generative AI to help generate code and effectively democratize the way code is generated. So with that, let's go on to the demo. What we wanted to show you is a capability that we've developed within our platform. This is a capability that uses AI to generate samples of code that can be reviewed and incorporated into commonly executed coding tasks. This capability, if it's used correctly, allows developers to increase productivity, reduce errors, and standardize quality over a huge pool of coders. It's a use case that really cuts across a variety of industries and a variety of commonly executed tasks, file transfers, analysis of variables, business visualization, what have you. The capability, we believe, is going to be one of the most transformative in terms of how companies use it. Now, the way we use the capability is that we've incorporated a pre-trained large language model which helps us generate code sets for commonly executed tasks. It's accessed from within EXL's generative AI platform, where it works as a coding assistance tool. Now, we use the platform to generate sample code, which a coder then goes out and reviews. And once they've done the review, they can incorporate it into the coding output, and subsequently it goes through an expert review process, which validates its efficiency and efficacy. This allows us to capture the higher productivity benefit, reduce errors, and produce much more efficient codes that really conform to coding standards as established by our client. Now, we want to show you a short demo of this capability. The example that we've chosen is one where we are implementing a logical decision tree. This is something that we do commonly across multiple different clients and multiple use cases. In this case, we're using a banking example. Now, we'll start the code with a basic command, which says that we want to approve applicants with a risk score which is over a prescribed limit. As you can see, we are writing that in English. The AI understands the instruction and generates the code corresponding to it. Now, here's the Java code that gets generated, and that code sample can be reviewed, copied, and inserted into whatever code sample that we are working on. And you can see how quickly that whole process worked. Now, let's make this a little bit more complex. Let's add an incremental criteria. In this case, we're going to introduce a criteria of saying credit inquiries that a person has to, it has to be fewer than 2. Now, similar to the first step, the AI generates the appropriate code, but there's something very interesting that just happened. the AI understands the context of the question, remembers the first question, and essentially includes this new criteria with an AND condition. So it combines the two conditions and understands that one's on top of the other. The other intelligence that comes through is the fact that it remembers that inquiries less than 2 is a positive condition rather than negative. And that's again an example of how the AI has understood the code sets that have been fed in, understood the context, and you're seeing that actually get replicated here. Now, the code set that you've just seen generated is actually something that is of a pretty high standard and conforms to the data sets that we fed in terms of the coding standards. The variable names, the way the code has been generated, the context, the syntax, all of it is really standardized. And that's really showing something that's the power of how the AI code generation works. Now we can keep adding new criteria to this. We are adding more criteria here, and as you can see, the code set generates all of those new criteria, embeds that into the decision, and quite simply what you have now is a fairly complex decision tree that has been coded. Now this capability and this tool does a few things very well. It dramatically increases the productivity of new developers. It allows us through the AI to bring in a very high coding standard because the AI learns from code sets that are approved for high quality. And on the flip side, with the process that we've designed, we ensure that none of this code actually makes it to production until an expert has validated it. We ensure that nothing that's AI generated gets passed through the code without having a human in the loop and without having it be tested. And that, I think, adheres to the standard that Rohit had talked about up front of saying, the way we balance everything out. Now I want to show you another example. In our first example, we saw how normal English language was converted into code sets. Now I want to show you something that goes a step further. Here, the AI is going to take an image, understand the context of that image, and generate a code set for it. So we are going to show you an image. This is basically an image of a decision tree. It's got a number of different nodes on it, and it shows you how each node gets broken up based on a particular decision criteria. This is a decision tree in this case where we are again making a judgment on whether an applicant is good or bad based on all of these different decision points that you see. So we're going to feed this particular tree into the code, and what you're seeing here is that the AI has read all of the conditions, and from the context of the decision tree, it's mapped out certain variables. It's actually prompting us to say, map those variables to what the variable names are within the data set. So it allows us to actually bring in data set variables that are in the data dictionary and allows the conformity of the code to happen. Now you can see the code get generated, and what you've seen is the power of the tool, because what was essentially just an image, what was essentially just a logical structure that someone had sketched out, is now a fully functioning Java code that has been mapped out to the data dictionary that corresponds to the data sets. Now this is something that's pretty powerful, because what we've just shown you is the ability of someone without knowing anything about coding standards, without in fact being a trained programmer, can take a logical structure, can take something that's a logical image and transform it into a code set that is of very high quality, that is checked in and trained for reducing errors, and it actually really propels them forward in terms of how they can start incorporating this into production. Now, just last note here, the LLM that we've used here is one that sits within our environment. It's not exposed to the external environment at all, and all the data sets are constrained within our environment as well. Now, we've been running the coding assistance tool within our platform for the last couple of weeks. A group of programmers are already testing it, and there's some benefits that have jumped out for us. The obvious benefit is enhanced productivity. The ability to generate code automatically, which significantly increases the productivity of each programmer. But there are other benefits as well. One of them is the fact that we're seeing an improvement in the adherence to the coding standard, because now instead of every programmer coding the way that they were taught, they're actually leveraging the coding standard from the approved code sets that are used. This leads to fewer errors, because the errors that were introduced from human mistakes are getting eliminated. It's gotten us to a point already
where someone who's relatively inexperienced is now directly benefiting from the coding expertise and code sets of someone with a lot more experience and with a lot more expertise. So it's really shifted the curve overall in terms of performance. All in all, the experiment's going very well, and we're very excited about where this is headed. It continues to rely on our reinforcement loop and our control structure, which ensures that nothing that's produced here by the AI goes into the final output without testing and without expert human review. These controls, I think, are the key in balancing out the productivity benefits with the risk associated with introducing AI. And overall, the capability is one we feel very excited about in taking it to our customers. Now, this particular use case, I believe, has got broad applicability across industries, and if it's used in the correct manner, it can lead to a significant improvement in the way IT budgets are managed and the overall productivity of IT teams is developed. So thank you for kind of being patient with us and for sharing your time with us in terms of the demos. We've got a whole bunch of questions that were coming up on the chat, so I'm going to have Andy, who's curated some of these questions, just read out some of them, and hopefully between him and I we can answer some of these. Andy, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you everyone for keeping the chat live, for putting all those questions. In the interest of time, we've been able to take 3 or 4, the most commonly asked questions. So Vivek, the first one I'm going to ask you is, how can we ensure that our data will be secure and handled responsibly with the generative AI platform?
Oh, so this is something that we've taken a great amount of care to do this. What we've done within the EXL generative AI platform is make sure that the large language models that we're using within the platform are not exposing anything at all, not providing any feedback externally to within our system. So the code sets and everything that the code sets are getting trained on is actually within our particular data set, and it provides a very, very secure environment. We believe that this is the key in terms of balancing out the productivity benefits with the assurance that the AI is not going rogue on you. And I think it's probably the best way forward in terms of the implementation.
Thank you, Vivek. By the way, just on records, I don't like standing next to Vivek. 6'4" and 5'10" doesn't make it optically look good. But so I just want to put that on record. Second question, what advice would you give to enterprises who are on the journey to adopt generative AI? This is actually the most asked question.
So as you probably saw from Jen's research, most clients are right now actually interested in exploring what generative AI can do for them. But most of them are in the very early stages of figuring out, well, okay, this is exciting, what do we do? So the way we are actually interacting with our customers is in a couple of different ways. First of all, there's an advisory component where we have now the folks that have been working in the AI field for a very long period of time. We have the team of 1,500 people that are experts in how this is used. And we can come in and actually start working with them on how do they think through the use cases, how do they think through the tests that they need to run. The second part, I think, is that this is going to be experimentational, and this is going to be iterative for a long period of time. So what we are advising our clients to do right now is start testing out the use cases. And that's where we're meeting them, because we have the ability of using our platform to actually start producing these tests with very low latency, very high speed, and the ability to show them that how something can actually show results, which will then allow them to make their investments in how they go forward. So a couple of different things. Get ready for a lot of tests, get ready for, in certain cases, fast fails, but then also start getting ready to create an organizational change in the way work gets done across the entire company. So those are some of the points that we've been talking about.
Vivek, let's take this last one, and then you can thank the audience for encouraging participation here. Guiding principles or missteps that one should avoid to leverage the true potential of generative AI.
Oh, great question. I think, look, with most of these new technologies, there is the belief that it's a silver bullet. There is the belief that this is going to effectively solve all problems all at once. And that tends to be usually a little bit more hype than truth. Now, we believe that generative AI is very different. We believe that in its power, its transformative capabilities, in what it can do in terms of changing the way work gets done. But in order to unlock that, it has to come down to some very basic building blocks. Number one, it has to come down to data. No AI is going to produce the right output for you unless you've got the right data sets, you've got the right data features, and you've got control over data quality. Two, there has to be a decision made in terms of what's the foundational model that you want to go with. How do you want to run that foundational model? How do you want to go about choosing it and implementing it? And three, I think it really comes down to the use cases. And we talked about EXL having 50 odd of them already and increasing them. But it comes down to the use cases which make that AI real and actually bring that transformative impact into the business. And finally, I think it's about change and managing change throughout the organization in terms of how do you use this, how do you implement it, and how do you make it cascade through all the different processes. So I think those four things are actually key, and I'll be remiss if I don't say that in usually a lot of cases, our clients actually want to supplement what they've got going on with external teams, and that's really where we hope to meet them.
I think we're done, Vivek. Let's thank the audience.
So thanks, Andy, and thank you all for joining us today. Once again, we're delighted with the massive turnout, and I thank all the speakers, Rohit, Jen, who joined us by video, Anita, Andy. This was a great event, and thank you to everyone that joined us, and hopefully we can keep the dialogue going. Thanks. Bye now.